How can we communicate with more empathy? That's the topic that we're going to hit in this video. I would say empathy is the most powerful concept that we can embrace if we want to connect better with other people. So let's get into those details. Hello there and welcome back. I'm Alex Lyon, and if we haven't met yet, this channel is called Communication Coach because we are here to help people probably like you, emerging leaders in your professional setting, to give you good professional development advice, especially on the topic of leadership and communication. And in this video, we're going to talk about empathy. So how much empathy do you naturally have for other people? How able are you to understand where they are coming from in the moment? This one concept is one of the most powerful concepts that we can use, if we really embrace it, to change the way we interact with other people for the better. So several weeks ago, I was going through McDonald's drive-thru, ordering my Egg McMuffin. It's like the one item that's my weakness at McDonald's. And I pulled up to the cashier and he had amazing customer service. I'll call him John, put that in quotes, not his real name. John had amazing customer service. The way he talked to me, the way he looked at me, it really felt genuine, not like a robot, not like he's trying to move me along and get rid of me. It really felt special. And I told him, I said, John, I just want you to know you have amazing customer service. And every time I interact with you, you're amazing. And he said, you know, it really, thank you. First of all, thank you. He said, it really comes down to empathy. He just nailed it. He knew. Cashier drive-thru, he knew. Empathy. So let's talk a little bit about what empathy means, and then we'll boil it down to some ways that it shapes your communication like it did with John. First of all, empathy is understanding the other person's feelings. When you're able to put yourself in their shoes, take on their point of view, and take their perspective on the world and on the moment, you are going to understand their feelings. You're going to be able to connect with what they are experiencing in that moment much more effectively. There's a famous writer and speaker named Brené Brown, and she talks a lot about empathy, especially the difference between empathy and sympathy. And she says sympathy divides people. Sympathy says to someone else, oh, you poor thing. And it pushes them away a little bit in that way. But empathy has the opposite effect. Empathy is where you actually feel what they're feeling. You enter their world, whether it's a difficult or negative emotion or a positive and happy emotion. And I think this is something worth exploring for a second. A lot of times when we think of empathy, we think of what are people's struggles and what are people going through in that negative sense. And certainly that's what counseling's about. And as a leader, you have to be in touch with people's difficulties. But empathy is also entering their positive emotions and feeling what they're feeling, celebrating their successes with them, sharing their joy. That can really connect you with other people as well. So let's talk about 3 ways that communicating with empathy shapes your communication with other people. And it certainly shaped my interaction with John, the guy at McDonald's. First of all, we have more compassion in our communication when we empathize. So I could really tell that as an employee, John cared about me. As silly as it sounds, he's communicating to me in nonverbals, with eye contact, with a caring expression, and his verbal messages, the tiny little word choices that show you he sees you and he understands what you're going through right now. It's early in the morning, he knows it's hard, and he was just connecting with me. So he had much more compassion in his communication because he empathized. The second way is that we will shape our messages a little differently when we have the other person's perspective in mind. So now I'm not just communicating, saying what's on my mind, but I'm thinking about how this might land and connect with you as I communicate it. So I'm tailoring my message in a way that's going to meet you where you are. And so that's really what happened through the drive-thru. Even though I might have been the 50th or 100th person that came through the drive-thru that morning, I really felt like I was the first customer to come through because it was my first time coming through. John knows this, and so he's talking to me like it's my first experience. He's not treating me like he's already talked to 100 people. He's treating me like this is the first customer of the day, and he's happy to see me and he cares about my order. So that's one of the ways that empathy will change the way you interact with people. You will shape your messages with the other person in mind. And the third way is that our messages are much more likely to connect. So if it's built around connecting with the other person and where they are, your messages will end up hitting the target. You won't be out of touch or tone deaf in the way you communicate with people. You'll communicate with them to where they are, and you're much more likely to connect in that way. And so John at the drive-thru again did this in lots of ways. His facial expression, nonverbals, everything he said, he made me feel like we were two people, two human beings connecting and talking, even if it was very brief, rather than a worker and a customer. We were just outside of our roles a little bit more, those narrow roles of customer and worker, to one person talking to another person. And that's what empathy feels like. When you transcend those narrow professional roles that you feel stuck in sometimes, empathy will break you out of that, and then you connect person to person. So in terms of application, I would like you to think about the interactions that you have that could use more empathy. And I would love to read your comments in that section below the video. Where do you need more empathy in your life? What kinds of interactions feel robotic or mechanical that could use a little more empathy? Because I'm telling you, if we can do this in a drive-through situation where the clock is literally ticking, and there's room for empathy even there, I think there's room for empathy in a lot more interactions than we might be considering. So I would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts on that in that question below the video. So thanks, God bless, and I will see you soon.